People often think luxury travel requires months of planning, millions of points, or expensive international trips, but that's simply not true. Keep listening to hear how I booked a last minute luxury trip to Las Vegas, why domestic trips can be just as rewarding as international travel, and how this trip reminded me that sometimes the best getaways are the spontaneous ones. Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Minded MD podcast with your money best friend. I'm Dr. Lisha Taylor. And of course, I'm here to help you build wealth and make good money decisions so you can create the life you desire with more control over your time.
Lisha, can we talk about life insurance for a second? Because I feel like this is one of those things that people either avoid or overcomplicate.
Exactly. And honestly, a lot of us think we need these big, complicated, expensive policies when in reality, most people just need a solid term life insurance policy that actually protects their family.
And that's why we love working with PKA Insurance Group. They're independent brokers, which means that they're not tied to one company. They shop across all major carriers to find you the best option.
And what I really appreciate is that they're not trying to upsell you. They'll actually tell you what you do need, what you don't need, which is rare in the insurance world.
Exactly. Whether you're getting coverage for the first time or you already have a policy, they'll review what you have and let you know if it's solid or if there's something better or more affordable out there.
So if you've been putting off life insurance or wondering if you actually have the right policy or if your current policy is a good fit for you, this is your sign.
Reach out to PKA Insurance Group at pkainsurance.com or call 1-800-258-1018 to get started. And don't forget to tell him that we sent you. Also, the link is right in the show notes for your convenience. So click the link and get started today.
All right, listeners, I'm coming back to you with a solo pod today, mainly on a trip that I figured, oh my goodness, I think that our listeners could really benefit from hearing kind of how I booked this and all of the ins and outs and what made this trip so unique. But before I get into that, I figured that I might update you on my life. Things have been so busy for me lately. I am actually in the midst of trying to publish a few research studies, which, yay, will be great if they all get accepted and all the things get done. But as anyone who's tried to publish anything knows that it is not a simple process. Oftentimes you submit things and then the reviewers come back to you and they either outright reject your article and are like, nope, we don't want this in our journal. Or they will tell you, hey, we might consider it, but you got to make all these revisions and you got to make these edits. And so that's where I am with 2 out of the 3 papers that we just submitted. One I haven't heard back from, but the other 2, they didn't reject it. So yay, I feel like I've kind of jumped over that first hurdle. And now my research team and I are in the midst of making all these edits and revisions. And of course, it's taking lots of time. But anyway, such is life in academia. I'm constantly reminded that, oh yeah, this is part of being a physician and trying to add and contribute to the field. You may want to publish research. And for a lot of us doctors, it may be a part of your promotion criteria. Like if you wanted to be promoted from assistant professor to associate professor to full professor, then oftentimes one of the things that they utilize to determine whether or not you get the promotion is how many papers you've published in research. And so I am in the thick of things right now, trying to navigate all of this around people's vacation schedules as the summer is coming upon us. But such is life, and I am optimistic about things. All right, so let's get into this episode. So yes, I booked another trip, and I went to Las Vegas. I think I had teased it in a couple of episodes prior that I was going to go to Vegas for Memorial Day. But yes, I ended up going, and I really wanted to do this episode to talk about what happened, how I booked things, and how it went. Because, I think that sometimes when people hear me talk about these elaborate international trips that I take, to the Maldives or to Singapore or to Greece or Japan or whatever, they're like, oh my goodness, this is so cool, but it seems like it involves a lot of planning. And maybe they don't have the bandwidth to plan something to that extent in their lives. But one of the things that I wanted to do was kind of hop on the pod today and really talk about how you don't have to just have this international trip, right? It doesn't have to be boom or bust. It's not like, oh, I have to plan this elaborate international vacation or I can't go anywhere. Sometimes some of the best trips are the ones that you plan last minute. Some of the best trips are the ones that you take domestically. The United States is huge. There's lots of different states, obviously, and cool cities that you can go and visit. And so it doesn't have to be that you have to take an international trip. Maybe you have young kids. Maybe you are just not at the point in your life where you can take these international trips to Europe or Asia or Africa or whatever, these other continents. Maybe you just need to stay right here in North America, and that's totally fine. That's what I did with this trip, right? I knew I wasn't going to go anywhere international, but I still wanted to travel somewhere for Memorial Day weekend. I actually had 4 days off. I know most people for Memorial Day weekend have 3 days off. And so maybe you, sometime within the next month or two, there is a long weekend that you can plan, right? Maybe you don't have the time off to plan an entire week off to go somewhere far away, but maybe you can have a long weekend. Maybe you take a Friday off or a Monday off and have 3 or 4 days off that you can take a short trip. And maybe if you're able to get those days off, you're thinking to yourself, where could I go that could be fun? And where could I go where that I could utilize some of the perks that I already have at my disposal? Yes, sometimes when I'm planning these long, elaborate trips, I have lots of different hundreds of thousands of credit card points that I'm transferring out and doing all of these fancy things. But if you don't have that, or if you don't know how to do all of that, there are still some really cool domestic trips that you can take. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this today, because I think that we can all sort of maybe find some room in our schedule where we can take some really fun domestic trips that don't require a ton of planning. And so I know sometimes we tend to overcomplicate travel. Sometimes we're waiting for the perfect trip. And because of that, we haven't planned anything. But I wanted to really hop on today to kind of talk about how small trips can still create meaningful memories and rest for you. So let's get into this trip. So I knew that I wanted to go somewhere for Memorial Day. I knew that I wanted to catch a WNBA game. I love sports and basketball, women's basketball specifically. So I was thinking about where do I want to go? The last time that I caught a WNBA game in New York, I really loved it, but I had just been to New York. So I didn't want to go back to New York. I had thought about going to Chicago. I had thought about going back to LA where I used to live, but something in me, I couldn't remember exactly what it was, but I had this inkling that I wanted to go to Las Vegas. One of the WNBA teams, the Las Vegas Aces, is in Las Vegas. They were happening to play at home in their home arena in Las Vegas during Memorial Day weekend. And I figured, oh my goodness, this would be my chance to maybe go to Las Vegas. I live in Atlanta, so Las Vegas definitely is further away. I figured, man, you know what? I might be able to have some fun here. It'll be warm in Las Vegas, but not too unbearable. You know, there's a lot of things to do. I had been to Las Vegas before, but I hadn't really gone and explored the city in the way that I wanted to. So in full transparency, the first time that I went to Las Vegas, I actually drove there from Los Angeles, and I went there to celebrate one of my friends' birthdays. And although we had a fun time, right? We went out to these different clubs and parties and really had a fun time for her birthday. That was not the experience in Vegas that I wanted to have this time. I had not really done any shows in Vegas, for example. I had not really explored the strip as much where a lot of things are. And I figured, you know what? This is one of those cities that I've been to, but I haven't really explored to the extent that I would like. And then I'd been to Las Vegas another time in the past, but fun fact, I do sports medicine. The last time that I went to Las Vegas, I actually went as part of team coverage. So when I was living and working in Los Angeles, and I was one of the assistant team physicians for the LA Lakers at the time, and they were doing one of their preseason games in Las Vegas, and I was chosen to go with them. And so I got to fly on the private plane with the NBA team and go to Las Vegas and cover the game. So it was amazing, right? I will talk more about my comparisons to that experience, to this experience that I just had. But my point in mentioning that in this episode was that when you are traveling, I don't know if you've ever traveled with quote unquote famous people, but when you're traveling with famous people, whether it's a music artist, an athlete, or what have you, they can't just walk into the lobby of a hotel. If they did, then people would swarm them, right? And so these big hotels in large cities like Las Vegas, essentially they have different ways that you navigate the city as a famous person. I remember when I was traveling with the Lakers, we had to check into the hotel in a back alley sort of way. And there were certain floors that were blocked off from the general public where only the team could be. And there were walls that were actually secret doors that you could get in and out of. I know it's super cool, right? But my point is, the last time that I was in Las Vegas and I was with the team, I was kind of navigating that. I had never even been to the airport in Las Vegas because when you're flying private, you land in a different area and you don't go through the public airport. And so anyway, long-winded way of saying that I hadn't even seen the Las Vegas airport, right? I hadn't had a chance to really do Las Vegas as an adult, right? And explore this trip. I knew I wanted to go to Las Vegas. And so that was kind of my next point is like, I didn't have to plan this international vacation. I knew I wanted to go somewhere and I wanted to explore a city in a different way than I had in the past. And that city for me was Las Vegas. So now that I had figured out where I wanted to go and I had the days off and I think some sort of semblance of what I wanted to do in the city, I needed to book the hotel and I needed to book the flight. And this is sort of the point of this episode is that I knew I am not going to be doing this elaborate planning where I'm accumulating hundreds of thousands of credit card points and transferring them out directly into hotel and airline partners. I'm not doing all of that this time. I'm going to have a fun trip, even if I don't do all of that work. And how am I going to do it? Okay. So the first thing I needed to do was book the hotel. So I have several different credit cards, and one of those cards is something called an American Express Platinum card. And I actually have the business version and the personal version, but I had these American Express Platinum cards. And American Express recently revised all of the benefits associated with these cards. And one of the things that they did was they added on this hotel credits that you get twice a year. So twice a year, you can book a hotel through their program and get $300 off. If you book a prepaid stay through the Amex portal, you get this $300 off of a hotel stay. And so I figured, all right, I want to go to Las Vegas during Memorial Day weekend. Actually, at the time, I had 3 American Express Platinum cards, 2 of the business versions and 1 of the personal version. So I essentially was like, okay, I could book potentially 1 night on each card and get $300 off per night for each of the 3 nights that I was going to stay in Las Vegas, which was going to be Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. And so I figured, all right, this is cool. Let me see what hotels are available to me. Fun fact, when you book through the American Express program, if you book through their Fine Hotels and Resorts program, you can get $300 off even if you just book a 1-night stay. If you book it through their hotel collection, you actually have to stay 2 nights in a row. And so for me, I knew I wanted to maximize the amount of credits that I could get. So I wanted to book 1 hotel night on each of the platinum cards that I had. So I could get a total of $900 off, right? $300 per card per hotel night. So I was looking online, found various different hotels that I was considering. Some of the ones that I looked at were the Cosmopolitan, the Venetian, the Palazzo, the Bellagio, like all of these different hotels. And I was looking at the price per night. One of the things that I think is really cool when you book hotels through the American Express Fine Hotels and Resorts program is you don't have to have status to be treated like you have status. And I think this is really important for folks who maybe don't have status in a hotel partner, right? If you don't have gold or diamond status in the Hilton program, if you don't have this elaborate status in the Marriott program, one of the things that you can do is book these prepaid stays through different sort of credit card portals. And sometimes they will give you all of the perks as if you had status. For example, if you book something through the American Express Fine Hotels and Resorts program, oftentimes they will tell you all of the perks that you get. And usually those perks include free breakfast for 2 people each night that you stay. So now you don't have to pay for breakfast, or they'll give you this elaborate breakfast credit. Usually you get a property credit, and usually it's around $100 a night. If you want to go to the spa, they'll take $100 off. If you have a resort fee you want to apply it to, they will subtract that from the resort fee. If you want to buy more food on the hotel property or room service or whatever, you get this property credit. You also get a guaranteed early check-in and a late checkout. So if your flight lands early, you can check into your hotel at noon while other people may have to wait till 3 p.m. Conversely, if you're checking out of your hotel, most people have to check out of a hotel by 11 a.m. or 12 noon. But if you book it through this program, you can check out as late as 4 p.m. And so these are some of the things that I really enjoy. Plus, they will guarantee you an upgrade if one is available, or they'll let you know you have a higher likelihood of getting upgraded if upgrades are available. And so when you book hotels through this program, even if you have no hotel status, just simply booking the stay through this program gets you free breakfast for 2, a property credit, an early check-in, a late checkout, and the chance for a hotel upgrade. All of those things are things that we got during this stay. And so that's my first point is no, you don't have to rely on status. You can just book your hotel stay through some of these portals and still get all the perks as if you had status. And I don't know about you, but I really love getting those perks. And that's essentially what happened is like when we checked into our hotel, we were automatically upgraded. We got the free breakfast. We used the property credit. They asked us immediately, hey, are you going to use your early check-in or your late checkout? And so that was really nice. And so that's one of the things that I want to bring to your attention is no, you don't have to build up status. You can just book your hotel stay through some of these portals and you can get the perks of status. The other thing I thought was really interesting is when I was trying to decide which hotel I wanted to stay at, I thought I wanted hustle and bustle of Vegas. That's one of the things that makes Vegas what it is. You stay in these huge hotels. On the bottom floor of the hotels, there's these huge casinos and there's water fountains and there's shops. And I had never stayed in a hotel like that where I got to enjoy it to that degree. When I was traveling with the Lakers, we did stay at MGM Grand, but again, traveling with famous people, very different experience. So we weren't really able to utilize some of that stuff, or I wasn't as somebody who was working for the team at that point. And so I thought I wanted hustle and bustle of Vegas, but I actually ran into a couple of issues when I tried to book the hotel night. I wanted to book 1 night on each card, but because it was a holiday weekend, they wouldn't let me just book 1 night for some of the hotels. They wanted me to book 2 at a time. And if I tried to book 2 at a time, then I couldn't utilize all of the hotel credits. And so I ran into some snags. I ended up booking our hotel stay at the Waldorf Astoria in Las Vegas. Now you may be thinking like, Lisha, really? there are worse things than having to book a stay at the Waldorf. I like the Waldorf. It's one of the Hilton luxury properties. It just wasn't hustle and bustle Vegas. So if you've ever been to Las Vegas, like I said, there are these huge hotels with casinos and eateries and shops and all of these things. And a lot of the big hotels, the MGM Grand, the Cosmopolitan, the Venetian, the Palazzo, the Bellagio, all of these things, they have these huge casinos and gambling and all of the hustle and bustle. And I thought I wanted that experience, but unfortunately I couldn't book those hotels in the way that I wanted to and still utilize all the credits. The Waldorf Astoria allowed me to do that. And let me tell you, I am so grateful that I did. Like, oh my goodness, I thought I wanted hustle and bustle of Vegas, and even I was overstimulated when I got there. And so I'm very grateful that I booked a stay at the Waldorf Astoria. For those who've not been to the Waldorf Astoria in Las Vegas, it's one of the only hotels on the strip that doesn't have a casino. And so it's much quieter, if you will, and it's more like quiet luxury. They still have like a rooftop bar. You could do afternoon tea at some of their fancy restaurants. They had really good breakfast eateries and things like that. I think the Waldorf actually bought out the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, and so it has that kind of old school Asia kind of feel to it. It was so nice. The room was so spacious. We ended up getting upgraded. The bathroom was amazing. I am so grateful that I booked that hotel because after just walking around in Vegas with all of the people, I was so grateful to be able to go back to my hotel with a lot less people and a lot less noise and get a reprieve from all of the noise of Vegas. And so if you're looking for a hotel on the strip, great proximity to everything that doesn't have a casino, that you can maybe get a reprieve from the hustle and bustle of Vegas, the Waldorf Astoria is your choice. I really loved that. It was great. I'm very glad that I was able to book that. The other thing that I really loved is that I got all of these credits. So by virtue of just holding an American Express Platinum card, I am guaranteed Hilton Gold status, and that comes with more perks, right? So in addition to booking the hotel through the portal that gave me all of those perks like free breakfast and the early check-in and the late checkout and the property credit, by virtue of being a Hilton Gold member, which I got from just holding the American Express Platinum card, they also gave me additional perks. I think when I checked in, they told me I could use like $50 a day per person for breakfast, in addition to all of the other perks that I got. And so my boyfriend and I mean, we literally ordered whatever we wanted for breakfast, and it was not necessarily a cheap meal. One day we like split some pancakes, and he got oatmeal and I got a little side salad, and then we got some bacon on the side and got a latte and he got some juice and all of these things. And I think our breakfast each day was like over $100, and we didn't pay anything out of pocket because of all the credits we got at the hotel. I thought the room quality was amazing. I thought the service was great. I really loved seeing the different restaurants, and I did love the overall vibe. Whenever we needed a car for something, whether it was a taxi or an Uber, the workers there were just really grateful in helping us plan stays. They let us know what places we could walk to, what places we might need a ride to, gave us some recommendations for places to eat. And so I am very grateful. I loved my stay at the Waldorf. Great choice for me. I'm happy that everything worked out. Let's talk about the flights. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is how to book domestic flights for maybe less money. One of the things that you might have heard me talk about when I'm planning other international trips is how I accumulate these credit card points, right? And then I transfer them out directly into airline partners, right? And I'm able to redeem those flights for good value. And I do that a lot for international trips. But when it comes to domestic trips, I typically do not do that as much. Fun fact, I hold one of the Delta cards, and it is not the premier Delta card. It's like the mid-tier Delta card. I forget the exact name of it right now, but I hold that card. And one of the perks that comes with that card is a free companion pass each year, which means you can book a stay for yourself and another person, and you essentially get one flight free. So you pay cash for one of the flights, and the other person gets to fly for free as your companion. So I knew when we were going to Vegas, because it's a domestic trip, I wasn't going to transfer out any credit card points into the domestic airline. I could do that, but you tend not to get as great of value when you are transferring out your points to domestic airlines. That's just one of the things that you learn in the points and miles world. And so because I knew I was going to probably fly Delta, since I live in Atlanta and that's a Delta hub, and because I knew this was a domestic trip, I also knew I wasn't going to utilize any of my credit card points for this trip. And so for me, one of my two options was I could pay cash and use a companion pass. So pay cash for one of the flights and get the other flight for free, or I could use my Delta Sky Miles and redeem the flight. I didn't actually have enough the price of the flight at the time that I booked it. The fuel charges were high. There was still the war going on in the Middle East. And so I didn't have enough Sky Miles to actually book a round trip flight to Vegas on Memorial Day weekend for two people using Sky Miles. I just didn't have enough. And so I figured, all right, I'll just pay cash for one of the flights and I'll get the other flight for free. I was going with my boyfriend, so it was just the two of us. And that is one of the things that I want you to also understand. is that sometimes your credit cards, for me, in this case, this Delta card, will give you perks that you may not realize that you can use to drastically lower the cost of a trip. So our round trip flight to Las Vegas Memorial Day weekend ended up with taxes and fees and all of that, ended up being $900 per person. But because I could utilize that companion pass, I got one of the flights for free, right? So we paid $900 for two round trip flights to Las Vegas on a holiday weekend. I'm sure if we decided to go on a different weekend that wasn't a holiday weekend, the flight would be even cheaper. So that's my next point is it doesn't have to be this elaborate process where you're transferring out flight points and all of that. You could find tremendous value by just utilizing some of the perks you already have access to, which for me was this Delta Companion Pass. Now, I do want to be transparent that Companion Pass is not as easy to use as you might think. Yes, it is essentially a buy one, get one free for any round trip flight that you take within the United States or any place in the Caribbean, I believe, but it's not like every flight time that you want is available. Usually, Delta wants you to utilize that companion pass on some of their lower priced flights. And so, essentially, what I've learned to do is chat with the Delta agent and say, hey, I want to travel to Las Vegas. These are my dates, right? I want to leave Atlanta on this date and I want to come back to Atlanta on this date. Can you tell me which flight times might be available for me to use my companion pass? And the Delta agents are really good at telling you, okay, if you leave at this time, or this time, you can use the pass. And so essentially the most common times you probably can't use the pass for, but I was able to find a flight time that worked for me and a flight time coming back that also worked for me. I don't know why, but on the website, or at least I haven't figured out, you can't really tell which flight times are available for you to use that companion pass. And so I do think that you have to either call Delta or message them. I message them because it's easier and I don't want to get on the phone with anyone, and it works quite well. But essentially, I told the agent that I was messaging with or chatting with, hey, I want to leave and come back on these dates. Tell me the flight times that are available for me to use the companion pass. He was able to tell me and I was able to book the flight. Actually, he booked it for me. That ended up working really well. The flight was originally $900 per person and we paid $900 total. And so that was a big help and it didn't require a lot of work. It just required me messaging the Delta agent and utilizing a companion pass perk that I already had available to me that was about to expire anyway. One of the other things that was great is by virtue of me holding the Delta card and by virtue of me traveling a lot, I have Delta status. Now, I don't have the highest tier status, but I believe right now I have Delta Platinum status. And because of that, oftentimes I get upgraded on domestic trips. And that's what happened with this one. So whether you have Delta Silver status or Delta Gold status or Delta Platinum status like I do, or maybe Diamond status or some other kind of status in Delta, my point here is you don't even have to have the highest tier flight status in order to get some of the perks from that status. And for this one, it meant that if we wanted to check bags, we could check those bags for free. Also, there is a different sort of sky priority line. So if there was a line to check the bags, I could essentially skip the line and go to this other section where they would check in my bag much quicker. Now, we weren't checking a bag on this flight, but just know that that's a perk available to you. I just mentioned how we use that companion pass that was available to us. And then the other thing is we got upgraded for free. So we booked our flight in main economy and we ended up getting upgraded for free into Comfort Plus. Now, I'm not a particularly large person. It doesn't really matter that much to me if I'm in main economy or Comfort Plus or something on a domestic trip. You know, the flight is a little over, I think it was like 3.5 or 4 hours, but I'm not a particularly large person, so it doesn't bother me that much on shorter domestic trips. But my boyfriend is a different story. He's a giant. He's 6'4". So he really does appreciate the extra leg room that we tend to get in Comfort Plus. Also, there tends to be reserved baggage space for our carry-on luggage, which we both enjoy. And so for him, being upgraded into Comfort Plus was a big perk. And we were upgraded for free. So not only did we only have to pay for one of the flights, right? We got one of the flights for free, but we also were upgraded for free. And again, we didn't do anything special. It's not like we had to apply for anything in order to get this free upgrade. It's not like we had to beg the Delta agent. It's not like we had to transfer out points and plan 80 days in advance and like wake up early in the morning in order to secure these flights. Like we didn't have to do any of that. We just went to the Delta website. We picked our flights. We made sure that we picked flights that were applicable where we could use that companion pass. We could get our buy one, get one free. We booked the flight and then we got an email a few days later saying you've been upgraded for free into Comfort Plus. Again, you can travel in luxury without paying luxury prices and without doing a lot of work on the back end to plan this. You can use the perks already available to you. All right. In terms of Vegas itself, if you've not been, wow, I recommend going. I've been in New York City a ton of times. I hadn't been to Vegas as many times as I mentioned earlier, but I really did enjoy it. I actually think I was talking to my boyfriend and we were having this debate about, is there more things to do in New York City or Las Vegas for a fun weekend? Probably depends on your preference and what you want to do. But I mean, there are just so many things to do, from great restaurants to great shows to concerts to games to gambling, if that's your forte, to just getting away and exploring different areas. Like we really really liked it. Unfortunately, on our way to Vegas, our flight ended up getting delayed. I can't remember the cause of it, but we got in just a little bit later than we planned. So we didn't do much the first night that we got to Vegas. But the next morning, we had this elaborate breakfast, which I talked about earlier, that we didn't pay for because we had all of these hotel credits. We ended up walking the strip, and I got to see different parts of Vegas that I've not seen before. The large waterfalls, the huge hotels with all these restaurants, people in their bathing suits walking to day parties, people with lots of luxury bags going shopping, people that were gambling. Like, it was just fun. If you're a people watching kind of person, you might enjoy going to Vegas. That Saturday night, we ended up going to a basketball game. I mentioned I love WNBA. I'm a sports doc. I like basketball. And the game was really good. Went down to the wire, had a fun time. We got some free goodies when we went to the game. So that was great. There was also this really cool steakhouse that my boyfriend had liked. He'd gone to Vegas a few times before and really liked this steakhouse. And so we ended up having this fancy dinner with just great drinks and an amazing steak that we ended up splitting, which was great. We split the sides and just, it was awesome. This steak place, can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's in the area of Las Vegas that they called Old Vegas. And so most people, when they go to Vegas, they just kind of stay along the strip. But I wanted to see another part of Vegas, and this happened to be where this nice steakhouse was. And it was great. Amazing food, great service. And because of the time difference, by the time we finished dinner, I was like so exhausted that I just ended up going to bed. So I did not go out to any fancy club or anything, but still had an amazing day that day. The next day, one of the things that I wanted to do was go to the Sphere. If you've never been to the Sphere, it is this circular dome where a lot of concerts and shows happen, but it's really interactive. We ended up seeing the show The Wizard of Oz, which is essentially like the movie The Wizard of Oz, but it's got some edits and now it's in color and that sort of thing. But it was really interactive. There were things falling out from the sky in the dome at us. There was like wind blowing at our faces during certain parts of the show. It was just this great experience. If you've ever been to like a theme park, like Universal Studios or Disneyland, and you've gone to one of the theaters there, and you know how like when there's water on the screen, they spurt water at you, or when there's wind blowing during the screen, they blow wind at you. Think of that sort of thing as what was happening when we went to the Sphere. I liked it a lot. I thought it was really interactive. There were tons of families there, lots of last minute tickets. I mean, I think I bought the tickets the night before. They weren't too expensive, maybe $100 a person or something. But I had this cool experience at the Sphere that I really liked. Got to walk around some more, look at different shops. We ended up eating at one of these restaurants in Las Vegas that I had eaten at the Maldives, actually, called Zuma. And although I thought the food was a little bit better in the Maldives, the food was still good here. We had a little Maldives nostalgia as we were ordering some of the entrees and ordering some drinks and just kind of taking a load off. That night, we ended up going to a concert. My boyfriend likes, hip hop music. And so there was this Jeezy concert. He's a rapper, but instead of it being like a regular rap concert, he had an orchestra behind him. And so it was like this orchestra symphony mixed with rap music, which sounds a little bit odd, but was super cool. Although I didn't know all the songs, I knew some of them. And I was vibing to like the orchestra, this mix of hip hop. It was a black tie event, so we got to get all dressed up and my long dress and his suit/tux. And it was just like a fun night in Vegas. And it was something cool to do that didn't involve me going to a club. And so I had a really fun time at that concert. Then, the next day we ended up leaving really early in the morning because I wanted to get back to Atlanta. But that was really cool because we didn't plan a ton. Like, we did a lot of walking time. We had some rest and relaxation time. We ended up going to a rooftop or two and just like enjoying a drink and some of the views when we were in Vegas. But it was nice to get away. For me, it was nice not to have to plan this elaborate international trip. For me, it was nice to go to a place and not have this strict itinerary, but allowing myself to be spontaneous and say, you know what, I'm going to book these last minute tickets to the Sphere, or you know what, I'm going to go eat at this restaurant. To me, this was exactly what I needed. This is exactly what I wanted. It kind of reminded me that planning a vacation doesn't have to be a second job. That sometimes you can just pick a place that you want to go and use some of the perks already available to you without having to spend hours and hours and days or months planning all of these things. And more importantly, you can use the benefits that you already pay for on some of the credit cards you already have to really create and curate this amazing experience. So I know many professionals, especially physicians, are busy and you want to get away, you want to enjoy wellness, but you don't have time to plan a trip. Take this as your sign to plan something quote unquote small, to plan something domestic. It doesn't have to require a lot of work. I think people overestimate how much planning travel requires. Yes, an international trip across the world to a remote island like the Maldives does require a lot of planning if you want to be able to travel in luxury using credit card points. But some of these domestic trips, like a trip to Las Vegas, a trip to New York, a trip to LA, a trip to Phoenix or Scottsdale, or a trip to Florida, these don't have to require a lot of work. You can oftentimes do this with very minimal effort. Domestic travel can still feel luxurious. using points and perks intentionally can really help to elevate the experience that you have and help you create some memories with the ones that you love, even if it is just for 2 or 3 days. So stop overthinking travel. Take this as your sign that travel does not have to be extravagant in order to be meaningful. And you don't need millions of points or a 2-week international vacation in order to enjoy your life. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you've not been to Vegas, hopefully you found some tidbits that I mentioned in terms of me staying at the Waldorf, using some of the credits available, how I booked the flight, some of the reviews of going to this concert, going to the Sphere, going to a basketball game. It was super fun. Hopefully you found this helpful. All right. And before I wrap up the show, I will end with the fun money segment. So I basically already spent my fun money, and that was kind of at the Sphere. But one other thing that I am doing is buying some new shoe inserts for running. I've been getting into running lately. I've been running pretty consistently. And one of my friends invited me to do a race with her that is coming up. And so I bought some new shoe inserts so that I could make sure that I have good arch support for these races that I have coming up. And I am very excited about all of the summer plans that I have upcoming. Hopefully you found this episode helpful in terms of travel. I'll try to do at least one of these episodes periodically so you can get a glimpse into Lisha's world and some of the vacations that I am booking and planning, right? Some of these domestic trips, like the ones I just took to Vegas, don't require that much planning. And some of the other trips that I will take will require a little bit more planning. So hopefully you'll find this sort of travel series that I'll do periodically helpful, and you'll gain some own ideas of where you want to go next. So thanks for listening, and I will come back to you again next week.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Brooke. I'm recording a little disclaimer for my mommy, Dr. Brittany Halford, and her friend, Dr. Lisha Taylor. Just so you know, they're not financial advisors, tax professionals, lawyers, or financial planners. Everything you hear is for education and entertainment. It's not strict financial advice, you know. So use your best judgment, chat with a tax professional, and all those other people that you need to talk to. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep cruising on your journey to wealth and wellness. Bye-bye.